بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Fiqh al-Muamalat online class. And today is a continuation of the discussion of the prohibitions of Sharia and Islamic finance, and we are still with the Gharar. And this lesson or this episode is basically the last the last episode on the types of Gharar. Maybe from the next sessions we carry on other aspects related to the Gharar / the impact of the Gharar on some related contract. But for the classifications, I guess today is the last session for these classifications. The following one, basically, classifications of the type of the Gharar is basically the Gharar that exists in a non-held commodity. Sales of the non-held commodity. So here, when you were Sharia, when Sharia required transactions to be valid, so the possessions is one of the requirements. And these possessions could be constructive or physical possession, meaning that you possess physically the asset before you sell. Or you have a constructive possession. Like, for example, you have the shipping documents. Let's say you have an import and export business and you have imported a commodity or assets or whatever, machineries from China, and the cargo already on board of the ship, and you have the BL and the other shipment documents. So you are the owner of the commodity, even though you don't have physical possession, but this is regarded constructive possessions. At this moment, you can sell the commodity even it is still in China because you have a constructive possession. Or a physical possessions whereby the commodity has been delivered to your warehouse or to your shop or to your office. So in case what so-called a sale has been executed in a non-held commodity, you may have an issue here where the Gharar may trigger. Either you have a physical possessions or constructive possession in order to proceed with the next step and sell the commodity. And one of the reasons is that to avoid the mix between the first liability and the second liability. Because before possessions, the liability and the guarantee of the commodity in case something goes wrong with it, in case of destroy, loss, or any damage happening, it's on the seller. So basically, if you sell before possession, constructive or physically, so basically you assume the liability and you assume the guarantee, which is not the case because it is still under the first seller. So the two guarantee will be mixed up actually. So you will sell the commodity or the asset whereby possessions has not been secure physically or constructively. So you assume. So in case the asset at that particular point is lost, who will be liable? The original seller or you? So that's the issue and dispute may take place here. So basically the line that make a very clear demarcations and distinctions between the first liability and the second liability. The first, the guarantee, and the second guarantee is the possessions. Upon the possessions of the commodity, constructively or physically, basically, the seller, first seller, will be released completely from any liability or from any damage, and the risk will move from the sellers to the new buyer. At that point, so basically, you will assume the liability, you will assume the guarantee, and you will assume the risk, and it will be on you. Then you can sell it to a third party. So this is one of the type of Gharar whereby you should have the possessions, physical possessions or constructive possession in order to proceed with the other transactions. The other types, of course, we have mentioned it, but I think we mix it a little bit with one, which is basically sales of the non-existence. Actually, there are three things, if I may recap, restructure the types again. So you have the sales of the non-existence of the commodity. So there is a Gharar. And as is of that, you cannot sell something which does not exist. And we mentioned with the exceptions of Salam, Istisna, and Ijara. That's number one. Number two is the sales of the non-possessed commodity. meaning you don't possess the commodity. Here we are talking about the qabd, as we mentioned it just now, which means you should have either constructive or physical possession in order to sell. So the sales of non-held commodity will be regarded as another gharar. The third one is the ownership. Sell something that doesn't belong to you. You don't have ownership over it. So three things basically. The first thing is the ownership. So if you don't have ownership, you could be authorized as an agent and sell it. First one is the ownership of the commodity. Second, the possessions. After you have the ownership, so possession is required. So you have to have the possessions, physical possessions or constructive possession. Then you sell the third one basically is the non-existence of the asset itself, which may trigger the gharar. And as a result of that, contract may not be valid unless it is salam istisna or ijara. The following one is basically the gharar, which is related to the lack of viewing of the lack of the viewing of the sold commodity, meaning that the commodity sold is not present, is not here, is not here. We call it bay'ul ayn al-ghaiba, meaning ayn is the asset, ghaiba is not here, somewhere else. So if you sell something which is not present, that you cannot see the commodity, specifications is required to be disclosed. Otherwise, it could be gharar. You cannot sell, for example, I sell you a car, and the car is in the warehouse, and it is, let's say, I don't know, it's a Honda Civic, for example, black, white color, and just overall and generic descriptions. And you don't see that one. That one could trigger a gharar, unless a detailed specification is provided. So either you see the car, and you make your decision, or the car is not there, so meaning a car is ghaiba, is not here, so details, information should be provided, and it is good to have what's called the khayar shart or khayar al-aib, meaning the options to reject if there is a defect, or the khayar, the options basically of the contract in case you want to change your mind. This is to avoid the contract being concluded and binding. So if the asset is not here to manage your risk, you may do the contract become binding, but you hold the options of khayar al-ru'ya, of khayar al-aib, or khayar al-shart. You include one of the options in the contract, so when you view later on the car, then you can make for your final decision. If you like it, you confirm. If you don't like it for whatever reason, you can pull back and revoke back the contract. But if you don't put khayar al-shart or khayar al-aib or khayar al-ru'ya, so the contract will be concluded and binding, and you may have a problem, and if you don't like, for example, the car. So again, information should be provided. This is similar to buying things from catalog. Sometimes you don't see the commodity. Even online, Lazada and Shopee and others online platform, Amazon.com, Muda, all these online platforms, it's some of them, of course, you may see, especially if it is second hand, you may see the commodity, you may see the asset, you may see the house, you may see the car, and the books and so on and so forth. But some of them are just pictures like a catalog with specification. So that one is allowed, even though the ayn is ghaiba, meaning the asset is not present, is elsewhere. But because of the specification has been provided, so you can make your decision. As a result, you can monitor the gharar. Meaning the only way to remove the gharar is basically providing a detailed specification. And this is why for example, Lazada platform, you will see the pictures, different angles of the pictures, you see the options of the color, you see the size, you see the measurements, you see the specifications, and so on and so forth. So it can give you a kind of sufficient information to make decision. But if something is not here, I have mobile at my office, or in my house, it is Samsung, you know, black color, are you interested to buy it? Then without detailed information, you just conclude the contract. Then at the end of the day, if the buyer see the mobile, so it is not as per his expectation, then dispute may take place. But if you take a picture, you give more details and very general informations on the assets, so that one could reduce the degree of the gharar. I think this is the overall types of gharar that has been covered so far, which is, as you can see, a quite important topic, and is quite a very significant prohibitions in Sharia that may impact from a different angle the validity of the contract. And as a result of that, always Sharia trying in concluding the contract remove all the potential gharar. Of course, here we are talking about the excessive gharar, as we have discussed before. The medium gharar and the minor gharar are excluded from the discussions, and they don't contribute to the invalidity of the contract. With that, thank you very much, and see you in the coming sessions to continue the different aspects of the gharar, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.